They say Route 66 is the road of dreams, the highway that carried America west. But when I drove it last summer, it didn't feel like a dream. It felt like a warning. Please like and subscribe before diving into the story. If you are alone, just hit the bell icon for more scary experiences. Let's start. I had set out alone, just me, my old Chevy, and the endless asphalt stretching from Illinois to California. The sun was still up when I started, and everything seemed normal: classic diners, faded billboards, and the kind of silence you only find in forgotten places. But when night came, the road changed. It was somewhere past Oklahoma, deep in a stretch where the towns had died out and the desert crept in. The headlights carved tunnels through the dark, and the radio fizzed with static, no matter how much I turned the dial. That's when I saw him. A hitchhiker. He stood by the roadside, tall, thin, his thumb pointed out like he'd been waiting for me. Something about him felt wrong. His clothes looked too old, like they belonged to another time: dusty slacks, a buttoned shirt, shoes scuffed to nothing. But what struck me most was his face. I couldn't see it. No matter how close I got, the shadows clung to him like a mask. I drove past. My gut told me not to stop. But when I looked in the mirror, the hitchhiker was gone. The road behind me was empty. I told myself I was tired, that the desert heat was playing tricks. But a mile later, there he was again, standing on the shoulder, thumb out, head bowed. Same clothes. Same shadows. It was impossible. There hadn't been any turnoffs. No way he could have gotten ahead of me. I pressed the gas harder. The Chevy rattled, the needle trembling as I pushed past 70. The road stretched straight and flat, nothing but blacktop and stars. I checked the mirror again. Empty. I started to breathe easier, until I saw him standing in my headlights, right in the middle of the lane. I swerved hard, the tires screaming as I tore into the dirt shoulder. When the car steadied, the hitchhiker was gone. No body. No sound. Just the engine ticking and the desert wind brushing against the glass. I sat there, gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles ached. My heart hammered in my chest. I wanted to turn back, to find a motel, to sleep it off. But Route 66 doesn't let go once you're on it. Something pulls you forward. So, I drove. Hours passed. The gas gauge dipped lower, and the desert seemed endless. That's when I noticed the lights behind me. At first, I thought it was another car, a pair of headlights cresting the horizon. But no matter how fast I drove, they didn't close the distance. They stayed the same, a steady glow in my rearview mirror, too far to catch me, too close to fall away. I slowed down. The lights slowed with me. I sped up. They followed. I flicked my blinker, turned off onto a narrow side road leading toward what looked like an old gas station. The headlights behind me turned too. That's when I knew it wasn't just another driver. The station was dark, windows boarded, pumps rusted and leaning. I pulled up anyway, desperate for shelter. The other car's lights cut off. No engine. No doors. Just silence. I stepped out of my Chevy, the desert air colder than it should have been. My boots crunched gravel as I walked toward the station. That's when I heard it, the sound of an engine idling, low and steady, coming from the road. I spun around. The headlights were back, brighter this time, but I couldn't see the car. Just the lights, floating in the dark, humming with that deep, mechanical growl. I stumbled backward, heart pounding, and when I reached my Chevy, the engine was dead. No matter how I turned the key, nothing happened. The phantom engine roared louder, and the lights began to move, slowly at first, then faster, barreling straight toward me. I dove out of the way as the glow swallowed the station, dust whipping into the air. But when I opened my eyes, there was nothing. No lights. No sound. Just the desert, silent and empty. I climbed back into my Chevy, hands shaking, praying it would start. This time, it did. I didn't care where Route 66 led anymore. I just wanted off. But the road has a way of keeping you. And as the miles crawled by, I saw towns that shouldn't have been there, gas stations still glowing, diners full of shadows, neon signs flickering like ghosts refusing to die. And sometimes, in the glow of my headlights, I saw faces watching me from the windows. I don't know how long I drove that night, only that the clock on the dashboard froze at 2:13 a.m. and never moved again. No matter how many miles passed under the tires, that green glow refused to change. It was as if time itself had given up on that stretch of highway. The first sign of life came when I saw neon flickering ahead. A red glow, buzzing and sputtering in the desert night. I slowed, heart caught between relief and dread. The sign read Mel's Diner, open 24 hours. The paint was peeling, but the letters burned bright against the darkness. I pulled into the lot. Every booth inside was full. Figures sat hunched over plates of food, their faces hidden in the shadows. The parking lot was lined with cars, all models from different decades, rusted Fords, shiny Chevys, even a couple of wagons so old they belonged in museums. None of their engines were running, and yet I swore I could hear them idling, a low hum that carried through the ground. I stepped out of my Chevy and pushed open the diner door. A bell chimed, high and cheerful, but no one looked up. The smell of fried bacon and coffee hung heavy in the air, and the jukebox in the corner played an old tune I couldn't place. "Seat yourself, honey," a waitress said. She stood at the counter in a crisp uniform, her smile painted bright red. But her eyes didn't blink. They stared straight through me, glassy and hollow. I sat at a booth near the window. The leather seat stuck to my back as I slid in. A menu lay on the table, its pages yellowed, corners curled. Every item was listed for 50 cents or less. "What'll it be?" the waitress asked, pad in hand. My throat was dry. "Just coffee," I managed. She nodded, but didn't write anything down. Instead, she turned to the counter, poured from a pot that had been sitting too long, and brought it back. The mug was chipped, the liquid inside black as tar. Steam rose, though it smelled more like dirt than coffee. I forced myself to take a sip. It was bitter, gritty, like drinking ashes. I set it down fast. That's when I noticed the man in the booth across from me. He hadn't moved since I came in, just sat staring at his plate. Pancakes. Cold. Flies crawled over the syrup, though he didn't brush them away. His skin was gray, lips cracked, hands stiff. I realized he wasn't breathing. None of them were. The figures in every booth were statues of decay, locked in poses of meals that had never ended. Some had forks frozen mid-air. Others had heads bowed over empty plates. And yet the sound of chewing filled the room, wet and steady, though no mouths moved. I pushed back from the booth, heart hammering. The waitress was still smiling, still standing too close. "Don't go," she said. Her lips moved, but the sound came from the jukebox. "Stay a while." I bolted for the door. The bell chimed again, shrill this time, like a warning. Outside, the cars in the lot hummed louder, their headlights flickering on one by one, though no keys turned their ignitions. The glow washed over me, blinding, until I scrambled back into my Chevy and slammed the door. My engine roared to life on the first try. I peeled out of the lot, tires screaming against the pavement. In the mirror, the diner shrank into the distance. The neon sign still glowed, but now it read something different. For just a moment, before the dark swallowed it, the letters spelled, "Never leave." The road stretched on, endless. The radio crackled, then cleared, as if tuning itself. A man's voice came through, sharp, steady, calm. "If you're driving Route 66 tonight," he said, "keep your eyes forward. Don't pick up hitchhikers. Don't stop for diners. And whatever you do, don't answer if the road calls your name." Static swallowed the rest. My grip on the wheel tightened. I wanted to believe it was just another station, some late-night broadcast meant to spook travelers. But I hadn't touched the dial since it went dead hours ago. And the voice had said exactly what I'd seen. The miles blurred. Abandoned motels, boarded shops, whole towns forgotten by time. Yet every so often, I swore I saw lights in the windows, shadows moving where no one should be. Once, I even saw kids playing jump rope in the street. Their song carried on the wind. 1 for sorrow, 2 for pain. 3 won't leave, for remain. I blinked, and they were gone. I was too far in now. Route 66 wasn't just a road anymore. It was a trap, a loop of ghost towns and phantom travelers. And I had no idea if I'd ever make it out. The farther I drove, the more the road itself felt alive. Cracks in the asphalt twisted like veins, the lines painted down the center glowing faintly as if they weren't reflecting my headlights but creating their own. The desert around me was silent, too silent. No wind, no insects, nothing but the hum of my tires. Then I saw him again. The hitchhiker. He stood on the shoulder, thumb out, same clothes, same shadowed face. But this time, he turned his head as I approached. For the first time, I saw his eyes, 2 dull orbs glowing faint yellow, like lanterns in fog. And then he did something that froze my blood. He said my name. I didn't hear it with my ears. It came through the static on the radio. My voice crackled in the speakers, low and distorted. "Ethan, stop the car." I gripped the wheel tighter, pressing the gas. My heart hammered in my chest. Nobody knew where I was, and I sure as hell hadn't told anyone my name on the road. But the hitchhiker stepped into the lane, holding out his hand. My headlights cut across his arm, and I saw something written there. Letters carved into the skin, deep and fresh, "Help me." For a second, I almost did. My foot eased on the gas, curiosity battling with fear. But before I could decide, the radio screamed with static so loud it rattled the windows. The lights flickered, and when I blinked, the road was empty. The hitchhiker was gone. I kept driving, knuckles white on the steering wheel. The next town appeared just before dawn. A faded sign announced, "Welcome to Jericho, population 1,246. But the streets were empty, storefronts boarded, windows shattered. My Chevy crawled through the silence until I saw a single figure sitting on a bench outside the post office. It was the hitchhiker. This time, he looked clearer, more human. His skin pale but intact, his clothes torn but real. He raised his head slowly, and for the first time, I saw his face. It was mine. I slammed the brakes, tires screeching. The figure stood, mirror image perfect, same hair, same jacket, same scar above the eyebrow from when I'd fallen off my bike as a kid. He stepped forward, lips moving. No sound came out at first. Then the radio picked it up, carrying the words into the cabin, "Turn back before it's too late." I sat frozen, staring at myself standing in the street. My double reached out a hand, palm open, eyes pleading. And then the ground beneath him cracked. A jagged fissure split the pavement, wide and sudden, and from it rose blinding headlights, like an entire convoy of phantom cars roaring out of the earth. My double was swallowed in the light, his body dissolving into smoke as the ghostly vehicles surged forward, horns blaring, engines screaming. I jammed the gearshift into reverse and floored it. The Chevy flew backward down Main Street as the phantom convoy poured after me, tires skidding on pavement that seemed to shift beneath my wheels. Storefront windows shattered from the roar, glass sprang into the road. At the edge of town, the phantom cars vanished as suddenly as they had come. The street fell silent again, nothing behind me but cracked asphalt and ruined buildings. Breathing hard, I gripped the wheel and stared at the rising sun on the horizon. But even in daylight, the road didn't feel safe. The shadows clung to the corners, and the radio crackled with whispers. "Not yet," the voice said. "Not yet." I knew then that Route 66 wasn't just haunted by strangers. It was haunted by me. By every choice, every fear, every regret I carried. The hitchhiker wasn't trying to scare me away. He was trying to warn me. And I had ignored him. So, I drove on, sunlight casting long shadows over the highway. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. In every mirror, every reflection, I half expected to see that other version of me sitting in the back seat, waiting. And maybe, one day, I will. The desert sun was high now, beating down on the cracked highway, but the heat did nothing to chase away the cold that clung to me. Daylight should have made things safer, less haunted, but instead it felt wrong, like a spotlight on a stage where I was the only actor left. I pressed the gas harder, desperate to outrun whatever was waiting behind me. The Chevy groaned, the engine rattling, but it held steady at 70. The road stretched endless, straight as a blade, and for a while, I thought maybe I'd escaped. Then I saw the sign. "Welcome to Jericho, population 1,246. I hit the brakes so hard the seatbelt cut into my chest. My stomach dropped. I had just left this town hours ago. The burned-out post office, the shattered glass, the empty streets, I had seen it all. But there it was again, exactly the same. Even the broken neon diner sign flickered the way it had before. I drove past, refusing to stop. My eyes stayed fixed on the horizon, but when I checked the rearview mirror, my blood went cold. Jericho wasn't behind me. It was ahead again. No matter how far I drove, the town returned. Sometimes it was miles away. Sometimes just around the next bend. The road had folded in on itself, trapping me in a loop. The radio crackled. Static, then the voice. Low, steady, calm. "You can't leave," it said. "The road remembers you." I slammed the dial with my fist, but the voice stayed. Louder this time. "Every mile you take, it takes from you." The Chevy sputtered. The gas gauge flickered from half full to empty, then back again. The clock still read 2:13 a.m., frozen, mocking me. When I rolled back into Jericho for what felt like the 5th time, I finally stopped. I pulled into the diner lot, the same one with the peeling paint and buzzing neon. I told myself if I faced it, maybe the loop would break. Maybe the road would let me go. The lot was full again, cars lined up from every decade. Inside, the booths were occupied by the same figures, motionless, gray, locked in their eternal meals. The jukebox still played its tune, but this time, the waitress didn't greet me. She stood at the counter, hands folded, staring right at me. Her smile was gone. "You're late," she said. Her voice didn't come from her lips. It came from the radio on my dashboard outside, muffled through the glass. I turned to leave, but the door wouldn't budge. The bell overhead jingled and jingled, though no one touched it. "Sit," she said. I did. I don't know why. My legs moved on their own, carrying me to the nearest booth. The vinyl squeaked as I slid in, the table sticky under my palms. A menu lay open in front of me, though the words were different this time. Not food. Names. Pages and pages of names, scrawled in black ink. My eyes caught one near the bottom, Ethan Calloway. My name. I shoved the menu away, heart racing. "What is this?" The waitress tilted her head. Her eyes rolled back, showing nothing but milky white. "The ledger," she whispered. "The road writes them all down. Everyone it takes." I tried to stand, but the booth held me like glue. My hands shook as I reached into my jacket for the keys. But when I pulled them out, they weren't keys anymore. Just rusted scraps of metal fused together, sharp and useless. The waitress leaned closer, her voice dropping to a hiss. "Don't fight it. No one leaves. Not until the road is finished with them." The jukebox screeched, the record dragging to a stop. Then, silence. A hand touched my shoulder. Cold. Heavy. I turned and saw him, the hitchhiker. My double. His face pale, cracked like old porcelain, but his eyes glowed the same faint yellow. He leaned close, his breath like dust. "You're next," he said. Something inside me snapped. I shoved hard, breaking free from the booth, stumbling toward the door. This time, it gave way, swinging open into blinding light. I didn't care where it led. I ran. When I hit the driver's seat, the Chevy roared alive on the first turn. Tires squealed as I tore out of the lot, the diner shrinking behind me. But in the mirror, I saw every figure inside rise at once. Dozens of hollow faces pressed to the windows, watching me leave. The loop wasn't broken. Jericho still lay ahead. But now I knew the truth. Route 66 didn't just trap you. It claimed you, piece by piece, until there was nothing left but a name in its ledger. And mine was already written. I don't know how many times I passed through Jericho after that. 2, 10, 100, it didn't matter. The sun rose and fell, but the clock on my dash stayed frozen at 2:13. Sometimes it was daylight, sometimes night, but the time never moved. My stomach knotted with hunger, my throat cracked with thirst, yet I kept driving. Something told me if I stopped, I'd never move again. The desert around me began to change. It wasn't just abandoned towns anymore. Whole places appeared that I knew had never existed. A motel shaped like a giant cowboy boot. A gas station painted blood red with no pumps, only doors that led nowhere. A drive-in theater with its screen still glowing even though no projector hummed. Shadows sat in the cars, rows of them, all staring at the flickering images I couldn't make out. Everywhere I looked, Route 66 was rewriting itself, stitching together fragments of memory and nightmare. That's when I started losing time. One moment I'd be gripping the wheel, watching the endless stretch of asphalt. The next, I'd blink and find myself miles down the road, with no memory of how I'd gotten there. Sometimes the fuel gauge dropped. Sometimes the rearview mirror showed headlights behind me, though the road was empty when I turned. The voices on the radio grew louder. Not just one now, but many, men, women, children. They whispered in unison, their words broken and jagged, like a choir without rhythm. "Stay with us. Stay. Stay. Stay." I tried turning the radio off. the knob snapped off in my hand, and the whispers didn't stop. One night, if it was night at all, I saw headlights ahead. Bright, steady, two beams burning through the dark. Relief hit me hard. Another driver. Another human. I honked the horn, flashed my bright. The lights answered, growing closer. But as they neared, I saw there was no car. Just headlights, floating, gliding over the asphalt with nothing attached. They screamed past me, wind slamming against my Chevy, and in that split second, I swore I saw faces trapped inside the beams. Mouths open, eyes wide, hands pressed against invisible glass. I pulled over, chest heaving, sweat soaking my shirt. The desert stretched silent around me, but I knew I wasn't alone. Not anymore. The convoy came the next time. Not one pair of phantom headlights but dozens, maybe hundreds. They rose from the horizon like a wall of light, engines howling though no vehicles touched the ground. My mirror filled with them, blinding. I slammed the gas, the Chevy screaming as I pushed it past its limits. 90, 95, the whole car shaking like it would fall apart. Still, the lights grew closer. I could feel their heat on the back of my neck, smell the burning rubber of tires that didn't exist. Voices flooded the cabin, loud now, shouting over each other. Some begged me to stop. Others laughed. One voice, the hitchhiker's voice, cut through them all. "You can't run from the road, Ethan." The steering wheel jerked in my hands. Not from me, not from the Chevy, but from the road itself. The asphalt twisted, bending like a serpent, pulling me toward the shoulder. I fought it, arms straining, but the car veered anyway, skidding into the dirt. The lights roared past, swallowing the highway, and for a heartbeat I saw it, an entire city hidden inside them. Towers of glass, streets full of people frozen in mid-step, all trapped in eternal motion. And then it was gone, the desert black and empty again. The Chevy idled, coughing, the engine ready to give out. My hands trembled on the wheel. That's when I noticed the road sign. I hadn't seen it before. Rusted, bullet-pocked, but still standing. It read, "Next exit, Salvation, 2 miles." I stared at it, disbelief crawling through me. There was no Salvation on any map of Route 66. I knew the towns, even the ones left to rot. This one had never existed. But I had no choice. I turned the wheel and followed. The exit ramp curved downward, the desert falling away into blackness. The air grew colder with every yard, the Chevy's headlights barely piercing the fog. Then the ramp ended, and I rolled into a town. The sign at the edge said, "Welcome to Salvation." The streets were lit, storefronts glowing, people walking the sidewalks. But as I drove deeper, I realized none of them were moving. They stood frozen in place, smiles plastered to their faces, eyes wide and empty. I pulled to a stop in the middle of Main Street. The radio went dead. For the first time in hours, or days, silence filled the car. Then every frozen head turned toward me at once. Their eyes moved first. Hundreds of them, all turning at once, fixing on me with a dead, glassy stare. Men in overalls, women in Sunday dresses, children clutching toys, all frozen mid-step until I arrived. Then their heads twisted, slow and stiff, like mannequins on rusted hinges. My Chevy idled in the center of Main Street, headlights spilling across faces that didn't blink. The silence was suffocating. I gripped the wheel, knuckles white, and for a long moment I didn't breathe. Then, as if one mind controlled them all, they smiled. Every single one. Wide, toothy grins stretched too far, skin pulling at the corners of their mouths. The radio crackled. "Welcome to Salvation," the hitchhiker's voice said. The crowd moved as one. Not toward me, yet. Just a single step forward, their shoes scraping pavement in perfect unison. A hollow sound echoed between the buildings. I slammed the Chevy into reverse, tires squealing, but the road behind me had vanished. My headlights hit nothing but black void. Main Street stretched forward, but the exit ramp I'd come down was gone, swallowed whole. The crowd stepped closer. "Stay," the voice on the radio whispered. "This is where the road ends." I floored the gas. The Chevy lurched forward, engine howling, scattering the frozen townsfolk as I barreled down Main Street. They didn't chase. They didn't need to. Wherever I turned, more of them appeared. At corners, in doorways, staring through windows. All with the same grin. Buildings blurred past, barber shops, a church, a movie theater with a marquee frozen on coming soon. The whole town was a stage, and I was the only one still playing my part. At the far end of the street stood a hotel, its sign flickering, salvation and vacancies always. The road dead-ended there. No side streets, no alleys, no way around. The Chevy sputtered, coughing like it had lost the will to fight. I coasted to a stop in front of the hotel steps. The doors swung open before I touched them. Inside, light poured from chandeliers too bright for a place so dead. A man in a pressed suit stood behind the counter, his smile as wide and wrong as the rest. "Checking in?" he asked. His voice carried through the lobby, though his lips barely moved. I shook my head. My voice cracked. "I'm leaving." "There is no leaving," he said. His eyes flicked toward the guest book on the counter. The pages fluttered open by themselves. Names filled every line, thousands of them, inked in handwriting that shifted and writhed like it was alive. Near the bottom, I saw mine again. Ethan Calloway. Bold, final. The pen beside it lifted from the desk, floating, scratching across the paper. It didn't write a new name. It finished mine, curling into an end mark like a sentence finally closed. The air thickened. The lobby seemed smaller, the walls closer, the chandelier swaying though no wind blew. "You've reached your stop," the man said. I turned and bolted for the door. Outside, the street was gone. No diner, no shops, no crowd. Just the hotel, standing alone in endless black. The Chevy was gone too, leaving me stranded on the steps. Behind me, the lobby echoed with footsteps. Slow, deliberate, many feet at once. I didn't look back. I ran into the dark, away from the glowing doorway, into the nothingness beyond. But the road was there waiting. The asphalt rose from the black like it had always been, stretching ahead in a single endless line. Route 66, cracked and shimmering under a false sky. I was back where I started, the hotel already miles behind me. The odometer hadn't moved. The clock still read 2:13. And the radio whispered again. "You can't run forever, Ethan. The road remembers." For the first time, I believed it. Route 66 wasn't haunted, it was alive. It fed on travelers, pulling them into its towns, its diners, its traps. It made them part of itself. The hitchhiker, the phantom cars, the frozen smiles, they weren't ghosts. They were echoes of people who had driven too far, stayed too long, given too much. And now it wanted me. The road stretched on, unbroken. My feet moved forward without me telling them to, each step sinking into the asphalt like it was softer than it should be. It pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. My heartbeat. I don't know if anyone will ever hear this. Maybe I'll end up just another name on the ledger, another shadow in a diner window, another face in the headlights. But if you're listening, if you're thinking of driving Route 66 at night, don't. Because the road isn't empty. And once it knows your name, it never lets you go. I don't know how long I walked. The blacktop stretched endlessly ahead, the desert swallowed by shadow, the stars overhead cold and still. My boots scraped against the pavement, every step heavier than the last, every mile the same. My legs screamed, but I couldn't stop. The road pulled me forward. At some point, the yellow lines began to glow. Not just reflecting my eyes, but pulsing faintly, like veins under skin. Each step I took, the glow brightened. Each breath I drew, the road breathed with me. I wasn't walking on it anymore. I was inside it. The radio crackled again. But this time, it wasn't the hitchhiker. It was me. My voice, warped and echoing. Keep moving, Ethan. Don't fall behind. I froze, blood chilling. My voice laughed through the static, low and broken. Then it spoke again, calm and steady, like a man giving a sermon. You're almost home. A light bloomed ahead, distant at first, then growing, brighter than a city skyline. Relief surged through me. Maybe this was the end. Maybe the nightmare had a finish line. I broke into a run, lungs burning, legs weak. The glow rose higher, wider. But as I drew closer, I realized it wasn't a city. It was headlights. Thousands of them, suspended in midair, rows upon rows stretching into the horizon. Engines roared, horns blared, but there were no cars, just the lights, floating, waiting. The convoy. They shifted as one, beams tilting toward me like a field of eyes. My own reflection stared back from their glow, multiplied 1,000 times. Some younger, some older, some broken in ways I couldn't imagine. Every version of me Route 66 had ever swallowed. And at the center stood the hitchhiker. He wasn't shadow anymore. He was solid, alive, smiling with my own face. He raised his hand, palm open, just like before. But this time, the letters carved in his skin didn't say help me. They said welcome home. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. But my body moved forward, feet dragging me closer to him, closer to the lights. The road hummed beneath me, louder, deeper, until it drowned out thought itself. Don't fight it, my voice whispered through the radio. We never fight it. The hitchhiker stepped forward. The lights followed. Their beams fused, forming walls of blinding white around me. The ground shook. The road split open. And from the crack, I saw them, faces. Hundreds of faces, maybe thousands, pressed against the surface like it was glass. All staring, all smiling. The diner patrons. The frozen townsfolk. The drivers in the phantom cars. They weren't strangers. They were travelers who had come before me. People who had taken this road and never left. And now I was one of them. The hitchhiker, my other self, stopped inches away. He leaned close, his eyes glowing gold, his grin too wide. You see it now, he whispered. The road doesn't haunt. It collects. His hand pressed against my chest. My heart stopped. The world shattered in light. When I opened my eyes, I was standing on the side of Route 66, thumb pointed out, waiting. My clothes were dusty, old-fashioned, like they belonged to another time. I couldn't feel my face. I couldn't feel anything except the road humming beneath my feet. Headlights appeared in the distance. A car. A real car. It slowed as it neared, my reflection gleaming in its windshield. And for a moment, for just a moment, I hoped the driver would keep going. That they'd listen to their gut and speed past. But the car braked. The door opened. Need a ride? The driver asked. I smiled. Because that's what the road wanted.